But we definitely plan to implement auto update for the editor. The plugin store will have it built in with no real work on our part. But we're going to model it very much like the Chrome auto update, where it's sort of effortless. It downloads a new version and asks you if you want to restart, and very little work on the user's part, and you're always kept up to date with the latest and greatest of the editor. And the time frame of that is also soon, but not tomorrow. So.
Okay, next question. There was some discussion on the mailing list about type inferencing and the editor. What is the policy with respect to untyped variables and compiler warnings?
Yeah, we have an interesting opportunity with the editor. We definitely have to present to the user the same kinds of errors and warnings that they would see running the compiler or running on the VM in production mode, just so they'll know what kind of error they're going to be looking at. But we also have the opportunity to present the user with additional information that we can gather from doing more detailed analysis than is done perhaps in some other areas. So we're still looking at exactly how that's going to manifest within the editor and exactly how we're going to allow users to control whether or not they get additional information. But that's definitely something that we can do.
Yeah, it's a real balancing act where we want to be consistent with the language, its goals, and allowing people to work in untyped mode. But a lot of users really want the safety and the scaffolding of types, and so it's a balancing act of maybe allowing users that want to work in more of a typed mode to let the tools where we can infer that additional information to give them warnings and help them, work in a safer mode, and for the developers that really want, untyped and adherence to the language, that they have that option as well.
Right. We also want to use it to improve the rest of the editing experience. In addition to being able to potentially provide warnings about errors that perhaps aren't specified by the type annotations, if you haven't, for example, provided any, if you've just declared everything to be a var. But if we can infer the types of variables, then we can do additional work for code completion and refactorings and other editor functionality to improve the entire editing experience. So it's not just about errors and warnings. There's actually a lot more to it.
Okay. Is SCM, Git, SVN support going to be included?
Yeah, I think the answer is for the editor, probably not. But for the plugin story, absolutely. It'll be one of the things that Eclipse will give us for free. And I think, obviously, team support, SCM, Git, subversion is all extremely important for working on large-scale projects and working in professional development environments, and definitely is something we're gonna support going forward. So.
Okay. When is code formatting going to be available, or is code formatting going to be available?
I can take this unless someone wants to jump in.
Go ahead.
It's on our plate. It's on our radar. We have a lot of things on our plate though, and we've sort of been prioritizing our work to try and get the most important stuff out first. We use code formatting heavily internally. We use it for our review process. We make sure the code is all normalized so that you don't deal with a lot of white space cruft changes. And I personally really like the philosophy behind Golang, where their formatting has one set of standards. Their Go format tool always formats code the same way. There's very few preferences and options. And I think that when we do come out with a formatting tool, it'll look similar to that, and that it'll format code according to our Dart code guidelines, sort of best practices. And there will probably be a command line version of it, and the editor will probably use that, and it'll just work that way. I think that the time frame is probably several months out, just based on other things on our plate. But it is an open source project, so if it's important to you, we're always open to patches.
Okay. Do you plan to integrate run and debug menu into one, just like in Visual Studio?
Your turn.
Well, it's been a long time I use Visual Studio, so I can't quite recall how it is. But if there's any reason that people are not happy with the way things are structured right now, we definitely take requests and go with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that adding a bug to our bug system and with a little bit more specificity about what you want would really help. We take a lot of our planning from the bug system, feature requests and current bugs, and that's really a way to influence the project for the editor is to file feature requests and bugs.
And the easiest way to do that is the send feedback button. All of those comments and questions for the Dart editor and for the language in general, all of those comments go into our inboxes, so we see all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are skeletons templates for new projects planned?
We have some wizards. We have basically two wizards for a Hello World web application and a Hello World command line, and I haven't personally given any thought to more types of more sophisticated wizards, but I could see that adding real value. So I think again, file a feature request and we'll follow up.
Yeah, I suspect we probably will once we know what they should look like.
Yeah.
I think it's a little early yet. There's a lot of infrastructure underneath that hasn't been finalized that will kind of shape what some of those templates would look like, and so it's a little bit hard right now to provide a final template. But yeah, I think once we know what they should look like, we'll do that.
Yeah.
Will a rewrite be done using Dart?
Well, that's a good question, and it's something we've speculated about ourselves every few weeks. I think the short answer is that the Dart editors team's primary goal is to deliver fantastic tooling for Dart, and currently that's based on Eclipse, and if we were to rewrite in Dart, it would mean that there would be a significant period of time where the tooling didn't improve. And I think in the short term, it's safe to say that we're going to maintain the Eclipse tooling. And in the very long term, it's really anyone's guess. I think for a lot of reasons, it would be fantastic to have the tooling written in Dart, and would probably allow the community to participate more in the tooling. But definitely short term, no, and long term, it's anybody's guess.
Okay. A related question: will there be a Dart web editor in the cloud, or possibly Cloud 9 support? Does anybody want to take that?
I haven't heard any concrete plans for that. I certainly wouldn't rule out anything like that, because you never know what we may end up doing. The question is what's most useful for our users, right? That's always what drives us. That's why the comments earlier, submit a feature request, send feedback, let us know what you need from the tool, because that's what drives us, is what our users need most. And if something like this is what users need most, then that's where we'll be. But in the meantime, no, we don't have any immediate plans to be working on anything of that nature. It's also the case that there may very well be, external people working on it that I haven't heard about yet, and that would be great.
Yeah,
we welcome that.
Okay. Will we be able to write Android apps using Dart or App Engine apps?
So this question, or a very similar one, came up yesterday with Seth and JJ and Glad, and the short answer is that we have had requests for App Engine support, but and it makes sense in our context, but there's no announcements in that area. And for Android apps, Android, the browser obviously is a modern browser, and Dart is targeting modern browsers as its platform, and we want to make Dart run fantastically on all those, especially and including mobile devices. And native support is not something on our radar currently, but definitely fantastic mobile apps are. So.
Okay, a language question. Will Dart have annotations?
Okay, I'll take this one. And if you look on the issue tracker, you can see that Gilad has actually talked about this. Annotations make a lot of sense for Dart. It's not going to happen as a first-class language feature in the short term. It's going to be a ways out. The editor has specific needs for some smaller subset of annotations, and we will probably add some extralingual features for that, so some structured comments to allow you to indicate that like a method that you're using or have defined is deprecated, that possibly methods that you're using override parent methods. So if you do refactoring and you think you're overriding something and you're not, you get a warning. And because we're going to be creating additional warnings that are not part of the language specification but that add value to users, like unused fields, we want a way to disable those warnings in specific places in code, because maybe that warning is true in the general case, adds value, but in specific cases you don't want to know about it. So we'll have some extralingual annotation support, which will probably go away once Dart has first-class annotations. And Brian, does that sound like a general?
Yeah, that's it. I can't think of anything to add.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're kind of done with the specific questions. How about there's a general question, what are some upcoming features? So maybe we can talk about some features that the questions in depth was.
Absolutely. One of you two want to take like the type hierarchy view that we're going to have?
Why don't you just start?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of requests for a type hierarchy view, which probably people coming from more structured languages really like seeing the inheritance hierarchy. Myself, I use it all the time for navigating code, and that's something that we're missing in the editor currently. And I can see that being added in the near term, not immediately, but definitely having a way to view your parent classes and child classes of your current what you're currently editing would be super useful. For myself and Kirti working on the debugger, we have some plans in that area. Short term, we want to just add some small features and bug fixing. They're pretty good debuggers. You get a full source level debugger when you're running against Dartium, but there's definitely some areas for improvement. Long term, we want to have better, tighter coupling with the virtual machine, so that when you make modifications in your code, that's reflected in the virtual machine. And 1 second. Oh, sorry. I thought that was the moderator telling me I had reached my time limit. But yeah, so that when you're debugging, you can modify fields and have those changes reflected live, and sort of very sophisticated debugging features. We're not close to that now. That's something that's a long-term goal for us. That requires support from the virtual machine, and the virtual machine team has a lot of demands on their time. But it'll be something that we'll roll out eventually, having much tighter coupling and awareness of the virtual machine. And another aspect of debugging is our JavaScript story. Currently, you have very first-class support when you're running your Dart application natively in Dartium. source level debugging when you, and that's a great development story, but right now for deployment you often have to target browsers which do not support Dart natively. So you compile your Dart code to JavaScript using Dart.js, and we want the editor to provide better support for those scenarios, and that may not include full source level debugging for your Dart compiled to JavaScript, but we want to improve the story somewhat, so you can get console logging back, you can get exceptions back, and you just have a better experience, even if it's not quite the experience of developing against Dartium. And what other features do we have on the plate?
I really want to say something.
Well, we have a number of smaller features. Some of the ones that are probably more interesting, doing some kind of work in the quick assist area, or quick fixes. If you're familiar with what Eclipse has, I expect we'll be doing something along those lines fairly soon to help resolve compilation errors and other issues that pop up. We've also had a lot of requests for being able to control the visual appearance of the editor, being able to do theming of various kinds. And I expect we'll be doing something along those lines as well. We've already got some start in terms of being able to set the font size
and some key binding
changes.
Yeah.
And yeah,
it is interesting that a lot of sort of small aspects of a development environment are really important to people. Being able to change your key bindings is just a continual source of frustration if you can't do it. It doesn't take us a lot of work to do, but some things have a big impact on usability.
Yeah, definitely. We talked about some earlier. Definitely we want to work on improving the type inferencing that we have. Right now we have a very small start at it. There's a lot of work that we can do to improve that, which will have a big impact on a lot of editor features. Like we said, code completion and refactoring and a number of other areas.
You want to talk about the analysis engine?
That's part of the type inferencing stuff. The other major thing coming up in that area, we have some plans for ways to significantly improve the performance, which, if those pan out, should help with the editor experience quite a bit.
Okay.
We have a new question, but I'm not sure how well we would be able to answer it. What is the plan for Dart on mobile devices? Standalone VM, built-in browser extension?
I don't have knowledge of that myself. So my guess would be the current plan is to support it using Dart.js and like any sort of modern browser. Just if it supports HTML5, then we want to run on that platform.
Yeah, I know there is a lot of interest in being able to support mobile devices, but I don't believe that we have any concrete plans at this point for exactly how that's going to work. Definitely supporting JavaScript on any of the modern browsers, but as far as native work, I know that that's a great interest, but I haven't heard any concrete plans for exactly how that's going to happen, whether we're going to put the VM on the platform or whether there's going to be some other mechanism for doing that.
And the nice thing about the Dart project is that most of what you see happens, it's totally open source, and our development is open source, all of our code reviews and our commits, and mostly the future of the platform is there for you to see in the commit logs. It's very open in that sense.
Okay, another question. Running Dart code on VM is quite open source in nature, like it's not obfuscated. So any plans to give developers built-in box way to make it at least not easy to copy and paste code?
That's a good question. I'm not aware of that myself, an obfuscation tool. It may be something that we don't provide. but that is provided by third-party people, like in the Java world. We will have a tool definitely that will take your Dart code, spread out over several hundred source files, and consolidate it into one file for deployment. That'll make the startup of your web application quicker. But the goal of that won't necessarily be obfuscation so much as small code size. Are we?
Yeah, we're
out of questions.
Yes, we're
Okay.
done with all the questions.
All right. Well, thank you for watching, and I'd encourage everyone to visit the dartlang.org website for more information about Dart and to download the editor. And if you're at Google I/O, definitely see the sessions that we have and Jamie's Code Lab. So
See you all at I/O.
Yeah, thank you all for watching.